The alien girl fell into my prison cell. Ray sat on the cold stone floor of his prison cell. His back hurt. His eyes were tired. He had stopped counting the days a long time ago. The alien guards never told him why he was locked up. They just threw food at him once a day and laughed. This prison wasn't on Earth. It was deep underground on an alien planet. The walls were gray. The lights flickered. There were no windows, no sounds, and no hope. Ray thought he would die here, alone. But that day, everything changed. There was a loud crack from the ceiling. Dust fell down. Ray looked up. Suddenly, something dropped into his cell from the air vent above. He jumped back, ready to fight. But what landed wasn't a weapon. It was a girl. An alien girl. She was small, maybe 16 or 17 in human years. Her skin was light purple. Her silver hair was messy and long. Her eyes were bright green and full of fear. She screamed the moment she saw Ray. "Stay back," she shouted in a strange accent. "Don't eat me." Ray froze. What? The girl backed into a corner, her arms shaking. She looked around like a trapped animal. Ray raised his hands. "Hey, I'm not gonna hurt you." But she didn't understand. She kept saying, "Don't eat me. Don't eat me," over and over again. Ray realized something. She thought he was a monster. "Great," he muttered. "They've told you humans eat prisoners." She hugged her knees and stared at him like he had teeth made of knives. Ray sat down slowly on the other side of the cell. "I'm not like them," he said softly. "I'm not a killer." She didn't respond. Her eyes watched every move he made. The guards outside laughed. They were watching through the security glass. One of them hit a button, and a voice echoed through the speaker. "Enjoy your new pet, human." Then the light turned red. It meant night cycle. Time to sleep. Ray sighed. The girl stayed in the corner. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. Just fear. Hours passed. In the middle of the night, Ray tore a piece of his blanket and placed it near her. Then he took his small dinner tray, half-eaten bread and strange alien soup, and pushed it toward her. She looked at the food, then at him. He pointed at it. "Eat, not poison. I already ate half." She didn't trust him, but her stomach growled. Slowly, she crawled forward and took the bread. She sniffed it first, then she ate, fast, like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Ray smiled a little. "You're welcome." That was the first time she looked at him without fear. The next morning, she was still quiet, but less scared. She watched Ray with curious eyes. Ray tried to talk to her. "My name is Ray," he said, pointing to himself. "Ray." She stared. He pointed at her. "You?" She blinked, then whispered, "Velari." "Velari," Ray repeated. "That's a pretty name." She looked down and touched her chest. "Velari." For the next few days, they didn't say much, but they began to share food. When Ray got water, he shared half with her. When the guards laughed, they ignored them together. Then, on the fourth day, something changed. Velari was drawing something in the dust with her finger. Ray came closer. It looked like a small house with 2 moons above it. "Home?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, my home." Ray sat beside her and started drawing Earth, a blue ball with 1 moon. She looked surprised. "Only 1 moon?" she asked. Ray smiled. "1 is enough." Velari gave a small laugh. It was the first time she smiled. That night, Ray heard her whispering in her sleep. Her voice was soft but sad. She said something in her language. Then, clearly, she said in English, "Don't take me. Please. Not again." Ray didn't sleep after that. In the dark, Velari turned toward him. "You are different," she said. Ray didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. She whispered, "Why are you not like other humans?" Ray thought for a moment, then replied, "Because not all humans are bad." Velari looked at him. For the first time, her eyes didn't show fear. They showed hope. She thought I was a monster. Valerie didn't sleep much. Even after days in the cell with Ray, she still didn't feel safe. She sat in the corner, knees close to her chest, eyes half open. Whenever Ray moved, even a little, her body would tense. Her hands would twitch like she was ready to run, even though there was nowhere to go. Ray noticed this. He pretended not to care, but inside, it hurt. He wasn't a monster. But maybe, in her eyes, he still was. That morning, as the food trays slid under the cell door, Ray pushed his toward her again. A small piece of bread and a cup of gray soup. He didn't care about the taste anymore. "Eat," he said simply. Valerie stared at the tray. Her hands shook. She reached for the bread, but before touching it, she sniffed it again, like she always did. Ray asked softly, "Do you really think I'd poison you?" Valerie didn't look up. She just whispered, "My people. They told us stories about humans." "What kind of stories?" Ray asked. She finally looked into his eyes, and what she said next chilled his blood. "They said humans eat us." Ray blinked. "Eat you?" "Yes," she said. "They said when humans are locked up, they eat aliens to survive." Ray shook his head. "That's not true." Valerie hugged her knees tighter. "They told us humans drink blood, that you wear bones, that you enjoy pain." Ray laughed once, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was tired, broken. "I'm sorry," he said. "Whoever told you that, they were wrong." Valerie didn't respond, but she didn't move away either. Ray leaned against the wall and looked up at the ceiling. "You know what they told me?" he asked. Valerie didn't answer, but she was listening. "They said your kind hates us, that aliens think we're dirty, that you'd rather kill us than talk to us." Valerie's eyes widened. "No, not all of us." Ray smiled sadly. "Same here. Not all humans are monsters." There was silence. Ray looked at her. "Why were you thrown in here?" Valerie looked down. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I refused to hurt someone." Ray waited. "My people wanted me to take part in a punishment. They caught a human soldier. They were going to torture him in front of everyone. I said no. I tried to stop it." Ray watched her eyes fill with tears. "They said I was weak, a traitor, so they threw me down here. Said I belonged with humans." Ray felt something burn in his chest. Not anger, not sadness. Respect. She had chosen kindness, and it cost her everything. He moved a little closer, not too close to scare her. "Thank you," he said. Valerie looked confused. "For what?" "For being better," he replied. There was a long pause. Then, slowly, Valerie reached into the side pocket of her torn uniform. She pulled out something small, wrapped in thin cloth. Ray leaned forward slightly. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a tiny crystal pendant. It shimmered even in the dim prison light. "My mother gave this to me," she said. "It's the only thing I have left." Ray looked at it with quiet respect. "It's beautiful." Valerie smiled for just a second, then hid it again. Then she asked, "Why are you here?" Ray sighed. "I was part of a peace mission. A group of humans came to help rebuild a village after the war. I was one of the builders." "What happened?" Valerie asked. "Someone set off a bomb. Many died. The aliens blamed me. Said I planted it. I didn't, but they didn't care." Valerie looked shocked. "Why didn't your people come save you?" Ray looked down. "Because the galaxy hates us, and maybe they didn't want to start another war." Valerie looked away. "I'm sorry." Ray shrugged. "It's not your fault." But the truth was, it hurt. A lot. For a while, they sat in silence. Just two broken people from different worlds, stuck in the same cage. Later that night, something strange happened. Valerie crawled toward Ray, very slowly, and sat next to him. She didn't say a word. She just sat there. Ray didn't move. He didn't speak. He just let her be. Minutes passed. Then she asked, in a small voice, "Do you have a family?" Ray nodded. "A little sister, back on Earth." "What's her name?" "Emily." Valerie smiled. "That's a pretty name." Ray looked at her. "Do you have family?" Valerie's eyes filled with tears again. "Had. I don't know where they are now." Ray reached into his torn coat and pulled out a tiny folded picture. It was worn and faded, but the smile of a little girl was still clear. He handed it to her. Valerie held it carefully, like it was made of glass. "She's beautiful," she said. Ray nodded. "Yeah, she always said I smiled too little, so she used to make silly faces until I laughed." Valerie laughed a little, a real laugh. Then she handed the photo back. "You're not a monster, Ray." Ray looked at her gently. "Neither are you." That night, for the first time, Valerie didn't sleep in the corner. She slept beside him, her head resting near his shoulder. She still whispered in her sleep. But this time, she didn't say, "Don't eat me." She said, "Don't leave me." A new human prisoner. And he's not like me. The peace inside the cell was rare. Ray and Valerie had started to trust each other. They spoke more now, shared memories, and sometimes even laughed. Softly, quietly, like people afraid to break something fragile. But that peace didn't last. One morning, Ray woke up to loud metal clanging. He opened his eyes fast. Valerie was already awake, sitting against the wall, her body stiff with fear. The cell door was opening. That had never happened before. 3 alien guards stepped in, dragging someone with them. A man. He was big, loud, and bloody. His uniform was torn. His arms were chained. They shoved him inside the cell and slammed the door shut. "This one is like you," one guard said. "Enjoy." The door locked. The hallway went silent again. The man fell to the floor with a loud grunt. Then he laughed. Ray stood up slowly. The man looked up at him with wild eyes. "Another human," he said, wiping blood from his mouth. "What luck." Ray didn't smile. He stepped in front of Valerie, shielding her with his body. "You okay?" Ray whispered over his shoulder. Valerie didn't answer. She was frozen. Her breathing was quick. Her hands shook. Ray turned to the man. "What's your name?" "Garth," the man said. "You?" "Ray." Garth stood up. He was taller than Ray, with a thick neck and a deep scar across his jaw. "I was a soldier," Garth said proudly. "Fought in 3 systems. Killed more aliens than I can count." Ray didn't reply. Garth looked past him, spotting Valerie. His eyes narrowed. "Well, well," he said slowly. "What do we have here?" He stepped forward. Ray raised a hand. "Don't." Garth laughed. "Relax, I'm just looking." "She's with me," Ray said firmly. Garth raised an eyebrow. "With you? You've been down here so long, you started hugging the enemy." Ray's fists clenched. "She's not the enemy." "She's not human," Garth said, grinning. "That's enough for me." He moved again, this time toward her. Ray stepped in his way. "Back off." For a second, everything went quiet. Even Valerie stopped breathing. Then Garth smirked. "So that's how it is," he said. "You think she cares about you. You think you're special. She's just scared. All aliens lie. They're snakes." Ray didn't answer. He just stood there, blocking Garth's path. "Suit yourself," Garth said, walking to the corner. "But don't come crying when she stabs you in your sleep." Valerie finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but clear. "He scares me." Ray looked back at her. "I know. Stay close." That night, Garth snored loudly in the corner. Ray and Valerie sat together, whispering in the dark. "He wants to hurt me," Valerie said. "He won't," Ray promised. "Why do you protect me?" she asked. Ray paused. Because you're the only one who sees me for who I am, not what I look like. You gave me hope when I had none. Valerie stared at the ceiling. I don't want to go back to being afraid. You won't, Ray said. Not while I'm here. She leaned her head on his shoulder again. For a few hours, it felt like the cell was warm. But the next day, Garth made it worse. He started throwing food near Valerie and laughing when she refused to touch it. Too good to eat our scraps, he mocked. You aliens think you're better than us. Ray told him to stop. Garth didn't care. Then Garth started talking about the war, about burning alien cities, about using alien prisoners for training. Valerie cried silently in the corner. Ray lost his temper. Shut your mouth. Garth stood up. Or what? Ray stepped forward. Or I'll make you. The alien guards were watching through the glass. They loved it. They laughed and shouted, "Fight, fight." Ray didn't want to fight. But he had no choice. Garth threw the first punch. It hit Ray hard in the stomach. He fell to his knees. Valerie screamed, "Stop." Garth didn't stop. He kicked Ray in the side. Ray grabbed his leg and pulled, knocking him down. They rolled across the floor, fists flying. Blood hit the wall. The guards clapped. Valerie ran forward, trying to stop them. Garth shoved her. Ray's anger exploded. He tackled Garth and hit him again and again. The guards hit a button, shocking both men with electric pulses. Ray collapsed, gasping. Garth laughed weakly. You fight good, for a soft heart. Ray didn't answer. Valerie helped him up. Her hands were small, shaking, but strong. You got hurt because of me, she whispered. Ray looked into her eyes. I'd do it again. That night, Valerie didn't sleep. She watched over Ray as he rested. She took part of her shirt, dipped it in water, and cleaned his wounds. Ray woke up and winced. You should sleep, he whispered. Valerie shook her head. You protected me. Let me protect you now. She smiled gently. You are not like him. You are not like them. Ray touched her hand. Neither are you. In the corner, Garth lay in the shadows. His face was bruised, but he was smiling, because he had seen something he could use. He whispered to himself, let's see how far the hero will go. For his little alien girl. I took a beating for an alien girl. The bruises on Ray's ribs were deep purple. Every breath felt like fire, but he didn't complain. Valerie had made a pillow from her own torn clothes. She brought him water and used her fingers to gently clean the blood from his face. You should rest, she whispered. Ray gave a weak smile. You said that last night. She looked worried. And you didn't listen then either. Ray closed his eyes, but his mind didn't rest. He was worried, not for himself, but for Valerie. Because Garth hadn't forgotten. Garth watched from the corner of the cell with quiet rage. The guards had punished both men for the fight, but Garth didn't care. He was angry that Ray had made him look weak, angry that the alien girl chose Ray over him. But more than anything, he was planning. The next day, Garth made his move. While Ray was still lying on the ground, weak from his injuries, Garth stood and walked over to Valerie. She was alone, trying to fold the blanket. She looked up, her face tense. Garth leaned down. You think he's gonna save you forever? He said, low and quiet. He can't even stand up. Valerie didn't speak. Garth smiled. You don't belong with us. You're just another alien pet. Then he reached for her wrist. Before he could touch her, Ray's voice growled from behind. Let her go. Garth turned. Ray was standing now, even though his legs shook. Valerie backed away. Garth raised his hands. Easy, I was just talking. You touch her again, I'll break your arm, Ray said. Garth laughed. Still trying to be the hero, huh? Ray walked forward, slow but firm. Say what you want. Hurt me if you like, but you don't touch her. The guards, again watching from behind the glass, leaned closer. One of them pressed the red button. The cell door opened. 2 guards walked in with stun rods. Ray stood tall, even though every inch of his body screamed in pain. The guards looked at Garth, then at Ray. "Seems you need another lesson," one of them said. Ray stepped forward. "Leave her out of this." The guard smirked. "Didn't say we were here for her." Then he hit Ray in the stomach with the stun rod. The electric pain exploded through Ray's body. He dropped to his knees. Valerie screamed, "Stop it! Stop!" The guards ignored her. They kept hitting Ray. Again and again. He didn't cry. He didn't beg. He just kept whispering, "I'm fine. I'm fine." Valerie ran to him, tried to block the hits with her own body. One guard raised the rod to strike her, but Ray threw himself in front of her. The rod smashed against his back. He didn't move after that. Valerie held him in her arms. The guard stepped back, laughing. "See, told you humans break easy." They walked out, and the door slammed shut behind them. Valerie cried quietly, rocking back and forth with Ray in her arms. His breathing was shallow. "I told you," she whispered. "You didn't have to protect me." Ray coughed weakly. "Yes, I did." "Why?" she asked through tears. "Why suffer for me?" Ray looked into her eyes. "Because you made me feel human again." She blinked. "What?" Ray's voice was soft, barely a whisper. "In here, we forget who we are. We become numbers, animals, shadows. But when I met you, I remembered I still have a heart. I still have a reason to care." Valerie touched his face gently. "I thought humans were monsters," she said. "But you're light in a place full of darkness." Ray smiled a little. "Then maybe there's hope. For both of us." Later that night, something changed in Valerie. She stood up and walked to the cell door. She looked at the guard on the other side. "I want to speak with the warden." The guard laughed. "Go back to your corner, alien." Valerie didn't move. "You hurt the only good person I've met since the war. And if you want him broken, you'll have to go through me too." The guard narrowed his eyes. "You think we care?" Valerie stared back. "You should." Then she stepped back into the shadows. 2 days passed. Ray barely moved. Valerie didn't leave his side. She sang in her language, a soft, strange melody. Ray listened with his eyes closed. "That song, what is it?" "It's a lullaby," she said, "from my mother." "Sing it again," he said. "Please." She did. Even Garth didn't speak those 2 days. He sat alone, watching. Something had changed in his eyes. Not anger, not pride. Something closer to regret. On the 3rd day, the lights flickered. The guards didn't come with food. The hallway was too quiet. Ray sat up slowly, wincing in pain. Something's wrong. Valerie helped him to his feet. That's when they heard it, a whisper through the wall. It was coming from the cell next to theirs. A voice, gravelly, weak, spoke in a strange alien dialect. Valerie translated for Ray. He says, "There's a plan. Someone is trying to help us escape." Ray leaned against the wall. "Who?" Valerie listened. The voice spoke again. Then her eyes widened. "He says, your name. He says, the human who protects the girl must be saved." Ray blinked. "They're coming for us." Valerie nodded slowly. "But we must be ready. When the lights go out, we run." Ray looked at her. "You're still with me." She smiled, full of emotion. "I'd always been with you." Escape plan, but she refused to leave me. The prison lights flickered again. But this time, it wasn't random. This time, it was a signal. Ray and Valerie stood close to the cell door, listening to the walls breathe. The strange voice from the next cell had gone silent, but his last message stayed in their minds like fire. When the power dies, run. Velari gripped Ray's arm. He could feel her shaking, though her face stayed calm. "Do you trust me?" she whispered. Ray looked down at her. "With my life," he answered. Velari nodded once, then listened carefully. She moved fast, faster than Ray had ever seen her. She crawled toward a crack in the floor, pulled up a hidden tile, and showed him something incredible. A tunnel. Not big, not deep, but real. Ray stared in shock. "How long have you been working on that?" Velari looked back. "I didn't dig it." Ray blinked. "Then who?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Joro." Ray remembered the strange alien in the next cell. Quiet, old, always humming. The one they never saw but sometimes heard. He must have been digging this tunnel for years, little by little, waiting for a chance. Velari looked at Ray. He said, "It's ready, but only for someone small." Ray understood immediately. "It's not big enough for me." Velari nodded. Ray stared at the dark hole. His heart sank. "Then you have to go," he said, "before they stop the power cut." Velari's eyes filled with tears. "No." Ray gently placed his hands on her shoulders. "You have to." She shook her head. "I won't leave you." Ray's voice was firm. "Velari, this is your only chance." "I don't care," she said. "You gave me food. You gave me your blanket. You took beatings for me. I won't escape without you." Ray looked at the tunnel, then at her. Then he said something she never expected. "Take this." He pulled a necklace from under his shirt. It was small, silver, and worn. "This belonged to my sister. It's the last thing I have of her." Velari touched the chain gently. "I want you to wear it," Ray said. "So she's with you." Velari's lips trembled. "But." "No buts," he said. "When you make it out, tell people the truth. Tell them not all humans are monsters." Velari fell into his chest and wrapped her arms around him. "You're my family now," she whispered. Ray held her tight, trying not to cry. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had hugged him. Then the lights went black. A siren echoed in the distance. It was time. Velari climbed down into the tunnel. She looked up one last time. Ray smiled through the shadows. "Go." Then, footsteps. Heavy. Rushed. Guards. Velari panicked. "They're coming." Ray turned toward the door. "I'll distract them. You keep going." "No," she cried. But it was too late. The cell door burst open. 2 alien guards stormed in. Ray raised his fists. The guards didn't wait. They hit him with batons, slamming him into the wall. He fell, coughing blood. Velari screamed from inside the tunnel. "Ray." The guards heard her voice. They turned toward the hole in the floor. One of them grinned. "She's trying to escape." The guard reached down, but Ray grabbed his ankle. The guard spun around, angry. He raised his baton to crush Ray's skull. Suddenly, a roar came from the tunnel. Velari launched herself out like lightning, leaped onto the guard's back, and scratched his face with her claws. The guard screamed, falling backward. Ray, with all his strength, tackled the other one. For a moment, chaos ruled the cell. Then, a flashbang. The room exploded with light and sound. Everyone collapsed. When Ray opened his eyes, Joro stood above them. Old, weak, but holding a stolen guard weapon. "It's now or never," Joro said. "Tunnel leads to waste pipes, then up to the service docks. Small people only." He looked at Ray. "You'll never fit." Ray nodded. "I know." Velari looked between them. She was crying now. "I'm not going without him." Joro's eyes softened. "You must." Velari knelt beside Ray. "Please," he whispered. "Live. For both of us." Velari kissed his forehead. "I'll come back for you," she swore. "I promise." Then she crawled into the tunnel again. Joro handed Ray the weapon. "You'll need it." Ray nodded, gripping the metal tight. Velari looked up from the hole. "I'll wait for you on the other side," she said. And then she was gone. Ray sat in the dark, holding the stolen weapon, surrounded by two unconscious guards. His body ached. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. But for the first time in a long time, he had hope. He had something to live for. He had someone who would come back. Meanwhile, Velari crawled through the narrow tunnel, hands bleeding, heart pounding. She whispered to herself again and again, "Hold on, Ray, hold on." And above her, the prison shook. Alarms blared, lights sparked. A rebellion was coming, and it had already started with love. "She was captured again because of me." Ray sat in the corner of the cell, gripping the stolen alien weapon tightly. His body was still broken. His mind was spinning. But his heart was focused on one thing. Velari. She had escaped through the tunnel. He had watched her vanish into the darkness with tears in her eyes and fire in her voice. She had promised to come back, and Ray believed her. Even now, surrounded by unconscious guards and cold silence, he believed. But belief can be a dangerous thing in a place like this, because freedom never comes easy. Hours passed. Ray didn't know how many. He tried to stay awake, alert, in case the guards returned. His vision blurred. His side throbbed. The burns from the stun batons hadn't healed. But he forced himself to sit up. He thought of Velari crawling through dark pipes, running through strange tunnels, dodging patrols. He pictured her climbing to the surface, breathing fresh air again, maybe even seeing stars. Then he heard it. Footsteps, rushed, heavy, dozens. He stood fast, aiming the alien weapon at the cell door. The footsteps stopped outside. A voice came through the wall, one he never wanted to hear again. "Garth." Well, Garth said. "Looks like you're still breathing, hero." Ray narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" Garth laughed. "Oh, just came to see the man who let his little alien girl go." Ray didn't answer. Then Garth said something that turned Ray's blood cold. "They caught her." Ray froze. "What?" "They caught her," Garth repeated. "Dragged her back through the pipes, screaming your name." Ray's hands trembled. "You're lying." "I saw it myself," Garth said. "Guess you were right. She did care about you. She wouldn't run. Said she wouldn't leave without you." Ray's weapon dropped a little. Garth kept going. "They beat her up pretty bad. Then they took her to solitary. You know the place, where screams don't echo. She begged them to spare you. Guess what? They laughed." Ray clenched his jaw. "She's in pain because of me," he whispered. Garth leaned closer to the door. "You think being kind is enough in this place? You think love changes anything?" Ray looked up. "No," he said, "but it gives you a reason to fight." Ray waited until the footsteps faded. He looked around the cell. He needed a plan. But his thoughts were a mess. His heart ached. He wanted to scream, to punch the walls, to tear the world apart. Instead, he took a deep breath and whispered, "Hold on, Velari. I'm coming." Far away in the darkest part of the prison, Velari lay on the cold floor. Her body was bruised. Her head throbbed. Her clothes were torn. The guards had dragged her back through the tunnels. They had shouted, laughed, hit her when she fought back. She had bitten one of them. They didn't like that. Now she was locked in a tiny room with no lights, no food, and no air vents. Just silence, thick and endless, and pain. But even through the darkness, Velari held something in her hand. Ray's necklace. She clutched it to her chest, like it was the only thing keeping her alive. She whispered over and over, "He's coming. I know he's coming." She didn't know how, or when, but she believed. Back in the main cell block, Ray limped through the halls. He had knocked out 2 guards using the stolen weapon. His legs were weak, but his mind was sharp. He followed the maps scratched into the walls, old paths left by long-dead prisoners. They pointed to something called the Black Wing. Ray remembered the stories. That's where the worst punishments happened, where prisoners screamed for days, where light never reached. That's where they'd put her, and that's where he was going. As Ray moved deeper, the walls changed. They were darker, colder. The lights above flickered slower. He passed cages filled with broken people, some human, some alien. They looked at him with hollow eyes. Ray didn't stop. He had no time. Finally, he reached a door. Heavy, rusted, with deep claw marks on it. A sign in alien letters glowed red. Ray didn't know what it said, but he knew what it meant. No hope beyond this point. He raised the weapon, aimed at the control box, and fired. The door exploded open. Valerie flinched as the light burst into her room. She covered her eyes, weak and afraid. Then she heard a voice that felt like sunlight. "Valerie," Ray called out. "It's me." She looked up. Tears filled her eyes. "Ray?" He rushed to her, lifted her into his arms. She was so light, so fragile, but still breathing. "You came," she whispered. "I told you I would." She smiled, barely able to move. "You always keep your promises." Ray held her tight. "I'll always come for you." But they weren't safe yet. Alarms began to scream. The prison knew. More guards were coming. Ray picked Valerie up and ran. His ribs screamed in pain. His arms shook. But he didn't stop. Behind him, footsteps thundered. Ahead, another door. Locked. He put Valerie down gently, aimed the weapon, and blew the lock open. They kept moving. Finally, they reached a cargo hallway, long and wide. On the far end, a transport pod. A chance to escape, but guards were already waiting. Ray aimed. He fired until the weapon overheated. Then he threw it and grabbed a pipe from the wall. He fought like a madman, one arm holding Valerie close, the other swinging wild. Valerie, weak as she was, bit a guard's hand, kicked another's leg. Together, they broke through. Together, they'd reached the pod. The door slammed shut behind them. Ray collapsed inside, holding her. "We made it," he gasped. Valerie laid her head on his chest. "You saved me." "No," he said. "You saved me first. We escaped together. Now the galaxy knows our story." The stolen pod rattled through the atmosphere. Inside, Ray sat against the wall, blood dripping from his lips, arms wrapped tightly around Valerie. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow, but she was alive. She clutched his sister's necklace in her hand like it was part of her soul. "We did it," he whispered. "We got out." But they weren't safe yet. The pod was damaged. Its controls were cracked. Sparks flew from the screen. The ship had no navigation system, no food, no idea where it was going. All they had was a direction. Up. And each other. Hours passed. The stars blinked outside the small window, cold and endless. The pod floated silently in space. Ray tried to stay awake. He checked Valerie's pulse every few minutes. Each time, it was a little stronger. He smiled weakly. "Keep fighting, Valerie," he said. "You're free now. We're free." Then, a flash of light. A sensor blinked red. Something was approaching. Ray forced himself to stand and look at the screen. A ship. Big. Fast. Coming straight toward them. Ray's heart dropped. "What now?" he muttered. He reached for a broken communicator and tried to send a signal. Nothing. The ship outside grew larger. Ray looked at Valerie. "If this is the end," he whispered, "then I'm glad I spent my last moments with you." But it wasn't the end. Not yet. The ship outside locked onto the pod and pulled it in with a tractor beam. The pod shook. Metal groaned. Then, silence. The doors opened. Ray raised his fists, ready for one last fight. But instead of weapons, he saw a face he recognized. Joro, the old alien who had built the tunnel. His arm was in a sling. His skin was burned, but he was smiling. "You really made it," he said. Ray couldn't believe his eyes. "You're alive." Joro nodded. "Barely, but enough to fly this ship, and enough to keep a promise." Ray carried Velari inside. Joro helped him gently place her on a medical table. Ray looked around. "Where are we going?" Joro smiled wider. "To the truth." 2 days later, the ship arrived at a peaceful alien moon. Neutral ground, home to a group called the Watchers. They weren't soldiers. They weren't part of the war. They were record keepers, truth seekers, people who listened when others stayed silent. Ray had heard of them. He didn't know if they were real, but they were. And now, they wanted to hear everything. In a round chamber with glowing walls, Ray stood before the Council of Watchers. His clothes were torn. His face was scared, but his voice was clear. He told them everything. About the prison, the guards, the beatings, the lies. About Velari. About love. He told them how two people from different species, raised to fear each other, had found family in the most broken place in the galaxy. Some Watchers looked skeptical. Others were moved to tears. Then they asked to speak with Velari. She entered the chamber slowly, still weak, leaning on Ray. But when she spoke, her voice was strong. She told them the truth, that Ray had saved her, that he had shared food when he had none, that he had taken beatings to keep her safe, that he had chosen her life over his freedom. And then she held up the necklace. "This," she said, "was from his family. Now it is part of mine." The chamber was silent. Then one of the Watchers stood and said, "The galaxy must hear this story." And so it did. The Watchers recorded everything, sent the message across systems. The faces of Ray and Velari appeared on screens in cities, in ships, in stations. Enemies paused. Soldiers wept. Prisoners cheered. Because for the first time in years, someone was brave enough to say, "We are not our species. We are our choices." Ray and Velari became symbols, not of war, but of hope. Months passed. Ray and Velari stayed on the moon. They helped refugees, healed others, built shelters. They slept side by side under the stars, stars Velari had never seen before. Every day, they grew stronger. Every day, the galaxy changed a little more. One morning, Ray stood at the edge of a lake. He skipped a stone across the water. Velari joined him, her hand now free of bruises. "You miss Earth?" she asked. Ray nodded. "Sometimes. My sister. The sky. The music." Velari smiled. "Tell me a song again." Ray sang softly. She listened, eyes closed, swaying gently. Then she asked, "If peace comes, will you go back?" Ray looked at her. "No," he said, "because peace is here." He touched her hand. "With you." Years later, when historians spoke of the great human-alien war, they didn't just talk about battles. They talked about a cell, a boy and a girl, a necklace shared between species, a love that refused to die, and a message that changed everything. Not all humans are monsters. Not all aliens are enemies. And sometimes, the smallest kindness starts a revolution.